Ma'am, I'm gonna need you to step away from his table. Now. Jasmine froze, the coffee pot trembling in her hand. The words cut through the din of the morning rush at Boulevard Cafe in downtown LA, sharp and loud enough to silence the clinking silverware around her. Her manager, Denise, was standing with arms crossed and eyes narrowed, radiating fury. He asked for, Jasmine stammered, glancing down at the man in the hoodie and sunglasses, sitting in booth 7. He gave her a calm nod, like he knew this moment too well. That's Snoop Dogg, someone whispered from across the room. Jasmine had known. Of course she had. She wasn't blind. But he had walked in quietly, alone, without an entourage, and he'd asked her, specifically her, to take his order away from the cameras, away from the fuss. So she did. That was her job. Denise stormed forward, yanked the coffee pot from Jasmine's hand, and hissed, "You are not authorized to speak to VIP guests. That table was reserved. You are done here." Jasmine's heart pounded. "I didn't mean any harm. He just wanted—" "I don't care what he wanted," Denise snapped. "You're a server. Act like one. Go to the back. I'll have your last check mailed." Gasps echoed from nearby tables. Jasmine's mouth went dry. Her apron suddenly felt suffocating. She looked to the man in the booth, unsure why, maybe for backup, maybe for some kind of signal. But Snoop Dogg just sat there, watching with a quiet intensity. She turned away, fighting the sting in her eyes. She wouldn't let them see her cry. The break room smelled like burnt toast and bleach. Jasmine sat on the bench with her head in her hands, barely hearing the manager's footsteps until Denise barged in and tossed her tote bag onto her lap. "You embarrassed this place," Denise spat. "So you're lucky I don't call security." "I served him coffee," Jasmine whispered, her voice cracking. "You're firing me over coffee?" "You know what this is really about," Denise snapped. "It's about you always thinking the rules don't apply, walking around like you're someone special." Jasmine's breath caught. There it was. Not about coffee. Never about coffee. She stood, shouldering her bag. "If helping someone politely makes me think I'm special, maybe I should be," Denise scoffed. "Get out." The sun outside felt harsh, like it was spotlighting her shame. Jasmine kept walking, past the line of valet cars, past the glances from customers through the cafe windows. All she could think about was rent, her brother's school fees, the medical bills from her mom's surgery last fall. One moment of kindness, one damn cup of coffee. She made it to the corner before she let herself break. Her back hit the brick wall and the tears came, slow and hot. Then a voice behind her said, "That was foul, what they did to you." She turned. It was him. Still in the hoodie and shades, but unmistakably him. Snoop Dogg. He pulled off his sunglasses. "I see people like you, real ones." "I don't forget." Jasmine blinked. "You followed me out here? I don't do interviews, I don't do attention, but I do look out for people who treat me like I'm human. You got a minute?" Jasmine nodded, stunned, silent. "Good," he said, smiling. "Let's talk. I got something in mind." If you're feeling for Jasmine already, wait till you see what happens next. Stick with her journey, and if this story's got you hooked, hit subscribe and drop a comment. This one's just getting started. Jasmine slid into the back seat of the black Escalade, her fingers trembling just enough that she had to clasp them together. She'd barely had time to process what was happening before Snoop had opened the car door, gestured for her to hop in, and told the driver to just roll. Now they were cruising through the streets of downtown LA, and Jasmine felt like a ghost drifting through someone else's dream. "You always that calm when people fire you in front of a whole cafe?" he asked casually, glancing at her through the tinted window. She let out a dry laugh. "It wasn't the first time someone talked down to me at that job. It was just the first time someone noticed." He nodded slowly. "People think fame gives you freedom. But it's the quiet people like you who see the truth." Jasmine looked down at her hands. "I wasn't trying to be seen. I just didn't want to treat you like a prop. That's why I noticed." They drove in silence for a few blocks. Jasmine tried not to stare as they passed boutiques, food trucks, tourists snapping photos on every corner. She'd served some of those same people, their impatient hands waving at her like she was invisible. She had never imagined sitting in a car like this, beside someone like him. "So, what do you do when you're not surviving cafe drama?" he asked. Jasmine hesitated. "Honestly, I'm just trying to make it through the week. Rent's due, my brother's finishing school, and my mum's recovering from surgery. I don't have time to dream about anything bigger." "You used to, though," he said, watching her carefully. She looked at him, startled. "You don't serve people like you did today unless you've got a story. You know people. That's rare." Jasmine smiled, a little bitter. "Used to want to open a space for kids, like a creative center. Art, music, food, a safe place. But life doesn't exactly leave room for passion when you're hustling 2 jobs." He leaned back, thoughtful. "You believe in that dream still?" She hesitated. "I think I have to." The SUV rolled to a stop. Jasmine looked up, expecting a restaurant or office. Instead, they were in front of a quiet building tucked between a barber shop and a corner store. Nothing flashy, a plain brick exterior, faded paint on the door. Snoop pushed the door open and nodded. "Come inside. I want to show you something." Inside was a warm, sunlit space, high ceilings, empty walls, a scuffed wood floor. The air smelled faintly of sawdust and citrus cleaner. Jasmine turned slowly, taking it in. "What is this?" she asked. "This," he said, "was going to be a studio. I bought it a year ago and got too busy to finish it, but now I'm thinking it's got another purpose." He walked to the center of the room. "You said you needed a place to start something. This is that place." Jasmine blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I want you to run it. Build your center. I'll cover the first year. You bring the soul." She stepped back. "You don't even know me." He smiled. "I know what it's like to be overlooked when you got something to offer. I see fire in you. Don't waste it." Jasmine swallowed hard, her heart pounding. Everything felt surreal, like the ground had shifted beneath her. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you served me like I mattered," he said. "And now it's your turn." The next morning, Jasmine stood outside the building with a ring of keys in her hand and a knot in her stomach. The early sun painted the sidewalk gold, and the street was quiet except for the occasional hum of traffic. She stared at the scratched lock for a few seconds before unlocking it. The heavy door creaked open, and she stepped into the dusty air of possibility. She still wasn't sure if this was real. Snoop had dropped her off last night with a folder of documents, a business card for his lawyer, and a number to call if she needed help. No strings, no conditions, just a blank space and a challenge. Make it matter. The room echoed with her footsteps as she walked toward the tall windows. Light poured in, highlighting the worn floor and empty walls. It was beautiful, but also terrifying. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from her little brother. "Heard you quit. You okay?" She smiled. He didn't know the whole story yet. No one did, and she wasn't even sure how to tell it. How do you explain that a rap legend handed you the chance to chase your wildest idea? You don't, she thought. You prove it. By noon, Jasmine had borrowed a folding table and a second-hand office chair from a friend who worked in event rentals. She dug out her old notebook, the one she'd filled with sketches and names and layouts back when someday still felt like a timeline. She started making lists, permits, insurance, cleaning, flyers, grant applications, community outreach. Everything cost money. Everything required time she didn't have. But she had space now, that was something. Around 3 p.m., a knock at the door startled her. A boy, maybe 10 or 11, stood outside holding a basketball. "You opening a gym or something?" She opened the door. "Not exactly, hoping to start a center at music, art, creativity, a place for kids to hang after school." He tilted his head. "You got Wi-Fi?" She laughed. "Not yet." He shrugged. "Lame." But then he looked past her into the space. "Can I shoot around inside?" "No hoops yet either," she said, amused. "But maybe soon." He nodded, then pointed across the street. "I live over there. My name's Ty." "I'm Jasmine," she said. "You're welcome to come back once we're open." He gave her a skeptical look. like he'd heard that promise before, then jogged off. Jasmine watched him go, heart heavy. This wasn't just about proving herself now. It was about making something for people like Ty, kids who didn't have safe corners to exist in. The next day, she walked the whole neighborhood, barbershops, bodegas, laundromats, handing out flyers she printed at the library. She spoke to anyone who would listen, local parents, store owners, bus drivers. Some nodded politely. Others promised their nieces or cousins would love a place like that. It was slow, it was exhausting. And then, 3 days in, she got a call. "Hey, is this Jasmine?" the voice said. "I work with LA Community Youth Fund. Snoop Dogg told us to expect your proposal. You got 5 minutes to talk about your vision?" Jasmine stood frozen in the middle of the room, heart pounding. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I do." She walked to the window again, phone in hand, staring at the sunlight warming the hardwood floor. Maybe it was real after all. 2 weeks later, the once empty building hummed with life. Paint still clung to Jasmine's hands, and the scent of fresh wood stain lingered in the corners, but the space had transformed. Bright murals covered one wall. A local artist had volunteered to bring Jasmine's sketches to life. A mismatched collection of beanbags, folding chairs, and hand-me-down instruments gave the room soul. It wasn't polished, but it was real, and people were starting to show up. That morning, Ty came back, this time with 2 friends. They dropped their backpacks by the wall and immediately started messing with the donated drum kit in the corner. Jasmine watched them from the front desk, a quiet smile playing on her lips. A few minutes later, a woman walked in. She wore scrubs and had tired eyes. "Is this the place for after-school stuff?" she asked, glancing around. "Yes," Jasmine said, stepping forward. "We're just getting started. Music, art, snacks, Wi-Fi soon. Free to any kid who needs it." The woman nodded slowly. "I work nights. My daughter's in 6th grade. She used to wait at the library, but they cut their hours." Jasmine nodded. "She's welcome here." The woman looked at her for a moment longer, then exhaled like she was letting go of something heavy. "Thank you." By late afternoon, the space held 7 kids and 2 moms who'd stayed behind to help. One was organizing snacks, another was wiping down folding tables. The stereo played low-volume jazz, while a boy tried out the keyboard with shy fingers. Jasmine sat near the window, cross-legged, watching it all. This was what she'd imagined in the cracks of her old life, during 10-minute breaks at the cafe, on bus rides home, while folding laundry in the dark. A place where kids could breathe, where they didn't have to buy something to be welcome. She heard the door creak and turned. Snoop stepped in, his presence as quiet as it was unmistakable. He wore a hoodie and jeans again, like he didn't want to draw attention. The kids looked up. One gasped. Another whispered, "Is that really him?" Jasmine stood. "You came." "I had to see it for myself," he said, smiling. She gave him a quick tour. Showed him the mural wall, the bookshelf she'd filled with donated paperbacks, the shelf of snacks they'd scraped together. He listened closely, nodding, taking it all in. When they reached the far corner where a few teens were sketching in silence, he looked at her. "You made this happen." "I'm still making it," she replied. He smiled wider. "You're doing more with it than I ever could have." Before he left, he pulled her aside. "You good on funding?" She hesitated. "The basics are covered for now, but we could use better chairs, real equipment, maybe a grant writer." "Done," he said. "I'll get you what you need. You just keep showing up." As he turned to leave, Ty ran over. "Hey! You're Snoop Dogg, right?" Snoop crouched slightly to meet his eye. "That's what they tell me." Ty grinned. "This place is dope." Snoop glanced back at Jasmine. "Yeah," he said. "It is." After he left, Jasmine stood by the door, watching him disappear into the evening light. Then she turned back to the noise and music and laughter rising behind her. She still didn't have a proper sign out front. But somehow the right people were finding her anyway. 3 months later, Jasmine stood backstage at a small community awards event in South Central LA, adjusting the collar of her thrifted blazer. Her palms were damp, and her heart beat louder than the music playing over the speakers. She hadn't planned to be here. In fact, when she first got the email saying she'd been nominated for a local light award, she thought it was spam. But then the phone call came, then the follow-up. And now, here she was, standing in heels she borrowed, waiting to be called onto a stage that had never been part of her plan. The host's voice echoed through the auditorium. And finally, our last honoree tonight is someone whose courage and kindness sparked something bigger than she could have imagined. Jasmine heard her name. The applause was warm and real. She stepped out under the lights, momentarily blinded by the brightness. The crowd wasn't huge, but their faces held something she hadn't felt in a long time: respect. She took the mic with shaky hands. Hi, she began, her voice cracking. This is wild. I don't really do speeches. I usually just make sure the paint's dry and the snacks are restocked. Laughter rippled gently through the audience. She continued. I started something a few months ago that I thought would stay small, a creative space for kids. Just one room, some instruments, a couple chairs, but it's become so much more than that. Not because of me, but because of the people who show up, every day. Her eyes scanned the crowd. Ty was in the third row, dressed in a too big button-up, sitting beside his mum. Two girls from the center sat beside a teacher who now volunteered twice a week. Even Denise, her old manager, had shown up, sitting stiffly in the back, a tight expression on her face. And I'd be lying, Jasmine said, if I didn't tell you that this all started because I poured coffee for someone and treated him like a person, not a headline. There were a few murmurs, a few nods. Snoop Dogg gave me a key, she said, but it was the kids who opened the door. She paused, emotion rising in her chest. I was fired for being kind. That moment felt like the end of something, but it turned out to be the start of everything. The room was quiet now. No clinking silverware, no coughs. Just listening. So if you're watching this, maybe online, maybe by accident, and you feel like no one sees you, I want you to know someone does. I do. Keep showing up. Keep doing the right thing, even when it costs you. She took a shaky breath. You never know who's watching. When she walked off stage, Snoop was waiting in the wings. He didn't say anything, just gave her a look that said, "Told you so," and pulled her into a quick brotherly hug. Proud of you, Jay, he murmured. Back at the center the next day, Jasmine unlocked the door just before the first kids arrived. The paint on the mural was starting to fade, and the stereo speaker had a crackle now. But the place was alive, and so was she. She didn't need anyone to tell her she'd made it. She just needed to keep the door open. If Jasmine's story moved you, there's more where that came from. Click the video on screen. It was chosen just for you. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another true story that deserves to be told.